So today I'm going to show you the Olympus Pen S. I got this one because the Olympus Pen W is way too expensive. That one sells for about $400 to $600. Partly because it was only made for 2 years and it's a pretty rare camera, but also partly because Daido Moriyama used it to take the photos in this book, 71NY. It's a classic photo book, and he has a really avid following, so those two things really drive up the prices of the Olympus Pen W. But the Pen S, you can still get these for about $75 or so, give or take. So that's why I got this one instead. The only difference is that this has a 40mm equivalent lens, and the Pen W has a 35mm equivalent lens. So to give you the once over of this camera, it's really small and pretty thin. If you take off the hood, it's a lot it's noticeably thinner, and you could put this in a coat pocket. Build quality is really nice for such a simple camera like this. The shutter button, it's really smooth, and you can tell when you're about to trip the shutter just because of the amount of travel you have to do and how that relates to this lip that they have in the beginning at the edge of the camera. So even though it's sort of a odd rectangular flesh sort of design, and it's not the usual round bump on the top, I really like the shutter button. And the shutter sound is really quiet. The leaf shutter is a nice crisp sound. Not that loud. But it could be more muffled, I guess, if the camera was bigger, but it's really quiet. No one's going to hear this anymore. The film advance crank thing, what is this called? The film advance wheel? I don't know. It has a nice ratchety sound. It's almost like a toy, but it's a high quality toy. Next to that, I guess, the film counter dial. You have to press down like that. It has a nice bit of knurling there, so it's easy enough to change it to 0 when you get to the end of the roll. And it doesn't need a whole lot of pressure, so but on the other hand, it does stay put when you have it in a bag or anything. So it's a nice amount of resistance, and it's nice and smooth. Next up, I guess the viewfinder. You have to hold the camera vertically to take a horizontal photo. But the viewfinder is kind of small compared to other point and shoots like the Tanaka. Might be it's noticeably smaller, but they're in the same ballpark. And the reflected frame lines, they're basically equally bright, but this one's kind of dusty and hazy, so I'm gonna have to clean this up sooner or later. And as for the controls on the lens, the aperture has knurling on the lip of this ring, and just sort of press it with your fingers like that. And the detents on the aperture ring are really nice and crisp. Even though they're really close together at the beginning and they're spaced farther apart at the end, you can easily switch between them because it's just so clean and crisp. I really like this. I'm pretty impressed for such an inexpensive camera. After that, you have the focusing dial, focusing ring. It has detents at 5 meters and 2 meters, and the detents are also really nice and crisp. You won't run over them by accident. It has enough resistance that it sort of stops you right there, and then but it's still easy enough to go to get off the detent. So it's a really great focusing ring. And the shutter speed ring, it's a little bit dirty, I think, because the detents aren't as clean as the one on my other Olympus Pen S. I got 2 of these just because they're so cheap, but this ring is a little bit less crisp. But if I cleaned it up, I'm pretty sure it'll be fine. So aside from that, you have a film rewind crank. It has a nice solid feeling crank right there. And there's no sound when you turn this. And this is kind of small, but it's still, it's so-so, I guess. I always wish these little knobs were bigger, but those are just the usual limitations, I guess, of making a little rewind crank. The back, the latch, feels like the latch on the Nikon F, nice and clean, and the back comes off nicely like that. The back fits on pretty nice and snugly. You can hear it sort of make a sound there, but it's less than the Nikon F that I have. So it's pretty nice, precise fit, I think. The rewind button, you have to hold it down all the time while you rewind the film. It doesn't have like a clicking stop, so just gotta hold it down all the time, I guess. But that's just that just goes to show how simple and affordable, but still well made these cameras are. These were made for casual snapshot photographers, and even though it's like really basic, it's well made. I would recommend it definitely if you want to take more photos per roll, and if you're okay, sort of estimating the focus distance just by turning the focusing ring. It's not it doesn't have a focusing tab like a rangefinder, so you can't exactly focus by feel, but by just pulling the dial back a certain amount. But the depth of field is a lot bigger on a half-range camera, so these 2 detents, the 5 meter and 2 meter detents, that's good enough for most purposes. They have a depth of field chart in the manual, so you should look at that if you want to get a sense of how accurate you have to be when you guess the distance to your subject. Anyhow, pick one of these up. They're really nice, and they take cool photos in the right hands. Also, somebody on eBay is selling these new old stock. It's a nice pressure fit, and it's not going to fall off because it's like nice and snug. So I would recommend getting one of these two just because it helps sort of manipulate the aperture ring. So anyhow, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a good week.